Hello and welcome to everyone who joined. We appreciate it greatly. This is a adventure that we've been doing for a couple weeks now, and we're getting some momentum. We're getting some traction. We're figuring out the best way to provide some value for you. Now, speaking of providing some value, my name is Joseph Allen. When it comes to the cryptocurrency space and things like that, I don't have as much value as this man here, Mr. Aaron Tilton, the CEO of the cryptocurrency platform SmartFi. He was a former House member in the legislation of Utah. And I mean, the man, he's done a lot of different things. He has a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. And we're going to go over some different topics today and get perspectives from both myself, from him, and see what types of things we can learn today.
Awesome. No, and I guess we need to introduce Joseph as well. So Joseph is a kind of an interesting cat. We met at Supercross.
Indeed.
Earlier this year. And I mean, it's kind of, this is the whole purpose for one of the, this podcast was one of the first things you asked me once you figured out what I did. You said, hey, I've been interested in learning how to invest in stocks or crypto or, some other things. What secrets, what things can you teach me or tell me about how to do this thing?
What's the secret?
So that's kind of where our whole, adventure kind of started from. But Joseph was on America's Got Talent. He was the Golden Buzzer Award winner. And I think you got 50 million views on all of your socials from this performance right here, which was crazy. Like everybody went crazy. Simon Cowell couldn't really even understand why everybody was cheering for you and everything. It was like, what the freak is going on here? So it was kind of interesting to watch that. But you also are obviously a singer, an artist, songwriter, and then the host of Supercross, which is where we met. And then you were also on the MTV Challenge. I can't remember which challenge this was. This was in what?
This was in Iceland. So this was Challenge season 36. Yeah.
That's why I would never go there. That's way too cold.
Yeah. It was insane, an insane experience, man. But speaking of experiences, I want to kind of start diving a little deep into the different experiences of life, man, which has led, for you to be where you're at.
Yeah.
I reached out, asked people to leave some questions for us to kind of figure out, what is it people want to know? What is it people want to understand about, an individual like yourself who's experienced multiple different things and found certain levels of success. So,
I was watching some of those older pictures of me when I was in the state legislature. I looked like a 10-year-old with a goatee. I was like, man, that was a long time ago.
And do you feel like looking back, it's I know oftentimes like people feel a strange feeling like when they look at pictures of themselves in like middle school or high school. Do you feel like when you see those photos of yourself, it kind of has that effect of like, oh, if only I knew then what I know now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would never want to change anything, but if I knew certain things back then, there would certainly be an advantage. And I think that's part of what we're trying to do here, right? You're 25, I'm 50. I've got some experience and want to impart that one to your followers, to ours. And that's the whole point about SmartFi. What we're doing is trying to make this simpler and easier for people, right? Their crypto experience or crypto journey. I can't tell you how many times a day when I meet somebody and they find out, hey, I'm in crypto, or we own this investment company, and they always kind of like, oh, now's my chance. I got this guy alone for 20 minutes or 30 minutes or 15 minutes.
Yeah. And
they always want some advice, right? What to do. And that was kind of the impetus behind a lot of this, and certainly behind the podcast. So I know you've got some questions that people have asked. We got a few from Discord. Maybe we can just jump right into one or two of those and start it off from there.
No, most definitely. And on that topic, someone actually asked from what I have, and I know we have questions from all around, but one of the questions someone had, they said, what is the one thing you would do differently knowing what you know now? So the question is pretty broad, but it's a general question. What's the one thing you would do differently knowing what you know now?
Yeah. So I think the first thing, and there's actually a little video clip we're going to play later on, so you want to stay tuned for this. but it is this clip is a guy in 2011. He started buying Bitcoin about $400 a month, he said.
Okay.
He was just buying it every month. He said and obviously nobody knew where Bitcoin was going to go at that point, but he was buying it. And you want to see the interesting thing about what happened with Doug, right? So we're going to play this clip a little bit later on in one of these sections. But the interesting part about this is that come up with a game plan and stick to the game plan. Everybody thinks that there's these, massive, grandiose things that you've got to do and take a massive amount of risk and all these other things. That's not true, right? What you need to do is have a good game plan. And we're going to talk about this, about dollar cost averaging. And I know that's not a new strategy, but it is one that takes a little discipline. And people think, no, it can't be that easy or it can't be that simple. It is, right? And for the average person, this is going to be the best approach, right? Because unless you're, somehow catch lightning in a bottle at a specific time or point, most people on average just need to do the average thing to prepare themselves to learn to be successful, right? And it's discipline. That was one of the things I didn't have enough of, I think, in my early, late teens, early 20s, was the discipline and the planning and the patience. So understand that part, that's what you need.
And I agree. I think planning is the word that came to my mind at 25. I think if there was anything I could do differently, it's just kind of having more of a plan, right? Like, and you experience that a lot, especially with kids in college. Like, we'll all be in school and we'll be enjoying campus life, but in terms of the plan, it's like, I don't really care. Like right now, we have classes, and then we'll kind of figure it out afterwards. And I think planning is actually what helps a person experience more joy as well, because it allows a person to have an actual path where they're like, okay, I can see that I'm on track for where it is I'm trying to go, rather than, looking around and being like, oh man, like, what's
the big advantage you have is you have time on your side. Use that. That's your best asset at this point.
Yeah.
And when we talk about Doug, you're going to see that's exactly what he did.
He leveraged
the last 10 years. What's that?
He leveraged his time.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you'll do that, that's a major asset. So we're going to move on from that. I know there was one other question, and maybe you could bring that up. What user was it that asked about starting a business or something, right? Wasn't it?
Oh, okay. So we have the user right here. It's the user Sweetheart 7300, and she asks, how can you start a business?
Yeah, we hear that as well. And what we do with our lending, and we're going to talk about our loans here in just a minute. Most of the people that get our loans are using that to invest in a business of some sort, right? They're using their cryptocurrency as the value that they tap into, and we help them get their dollars and do these things with the loans to help them invest. But here's what I would say for almost anybody. In fact, it's always this way. You have an experience that maybe is not good, maybe with a product, right? Or you have, when we had our first experiences with cryptocurrencies years ago, we realized it was tough. It was kind of confusing. It was a little hard, all of these things. And we said, this has got to get simpler. Somebody's got to make this easier. It's got to, there's got to be a better experience to make this so that you don't have to become, a day trader at a financial institution to actually make money in crypto. And so that goes into the dollar cost averaging we're going to talk about. Also, find this need, whatever that is. And when that need is not being met, then you've got a good idea. Because if you're having that experience, it means somebody else is probably having that terrible experience. Build a product that makes that experience better, right? One of the key things too is a lot of people believe that you got to have massive amounts of capital to start a business. That's not true. And if you don't have massive amounts of capital, just start with where you're at and start doing what you can do. And the money will come. As people see that the idea is good or the product's good, people will get interested. They'll start to want to help you with it. You'll start to learn that process of what it means to innovate a product and then to start to attract capital to the product. And you can take it. When we started this company, this was in 2007. So we've had this company now on 15, almost going on 16 years. My partner and I both put in $75,000. Mine was the second mortgage on my house.
Yeah.
That's where my capital came from, right?
Yeah.
It's what I had available to me. So we put in $75,000, and we've done over $1 billion worth of loans and transactions today in this business. We also made a lot of money in other businesses, an oil and gas pipeline business, energy infrastructure. So you can build it, but you've got to have a good idea. And one of the other questions, if I remember correctly, was about whether to learn from somebody or start a company. Maybe you can ask that question. You know, what was the best kind of path to get to understanding?
Yeah. Someone like JJ Solo Cal, he says, no boring stuff about motivation or how he got here. Who do I got to get money from, and where do I go?
Yeah. So the best thing to do is just start small, right?
Okay.
That's what we were talking about with your crypto journey, right? I didn't say, hey, Joseph, go mortgage your house, or you need to put $100,000 into this thing or this kind of stuff. Don't do that, right? You need to learn some things. You need to get some experience. And with averaging your experience, you're going to get better results. You're going to get smarter over time. So we'll talk about that in a few minutes. But what I want to do is help people understand what's the importance of these loans with SmartFi, because it does have to do with when people buy our token, what the value is there, right? So with this guy, I think his name was JJ. Is that what it was? What do I got to do? And what do I got to buy or whatever? Hold on, JJ. Remember we talked about patience. We're going to get there. Takes, let's go through these loans so you understand the importance of the loan component of all this, because it is the same with Bitcoin or Ethereum. All the value from those cryptocurrencies came from what I would term credit creation, right? And it is the ability of the networking effect, or a group of people to get together and believe in the value of something and then use that product, right? And when that happens, that value is created in our minds, right? And in our daily use. So the idea behind cryptocurrencies is mass user adoption, which it's not there yet. About 15% of the average population either has some experience with cryptocurrencies, either they've bought some, they've heard of it, but most of the part they might hold a little bit, in a wallet somewhere. So when we start to hit mass user adoption over 50%, then you start to create a community that becomes like the 800-pound gorilla, right? We're going to talk a little bit about that too, about this article from Market Watch about where most of the money is in equities, and it's not in giant banks or investment vehicles or hedge funds or all these guys. It's actually in households. That there is $38 trillion worth of equity assets held by a household in their retirement account, which is 52% of the equity markets. Wow. They control what goes on. It's kind of like the GameStop phenomenon with on Reddit, right?
Correct.
There were hedge funds shorting GameStop stock and pounding it short. All the gamers on Reddit were like, hey, this is total BS. We're not going to do this. We're going to stand by and let our company that we like, the product that we like, get pounded. So those guys started buying the stock and running the price up and basically collapsing the hedge fund. They had to halt trading and all of these other things because the average person who had an interest in GameStop wanted to see that business succeed. So when the value in your mind becomes more important and enough people hold that in households, think of how many gamers there are that are out there, right? There's millions and millions. They were able to successfully achieve what they wanted to do in supporting that business and supporting that product, even though the hedge funds were trying to stop them short, right? Wow. That there's enormous power. And that's the idea behind SmartFi as well. When you have like a bank only receives its deposits from people, right? That's where it gets the money to lend out. That was the same concept that we had with SmartFi. When we help fund small businesses, we could create a token around that funding of that small business. So today, Joseph, when you bought your first SmartFi tokens a few days ago, you became part of the SmartFi community. Right now, you have a vested interest in making sure that small businesses get loans, that they repay those loans, and that will affect the value of the token. So the more people that are buying the token and providing capital to basically fund loans, you're becoming the 800-pound gorilla in the cryptocurrency space, in this community with SmartFi. So super important. So let's go over the loans really quick. I'm not going to spend an enormous amount of time, but this is so everybody understands what is the importance of a loan, right? And I think everybody kind of gets that already. I'm going to share my screen. If I can get to here. But the importance of the economics of a loan in a community, not the importance of getting money when you need it. Everybody understands that value. When you need money, you need it, right? To invest in a business. That was the same idea. So I'm going to pull this up. Okay. So this is kind of our secret sauce, right? What we do. And again, we're going to divulge some of these little secrets as we go along the way. And some of them are conceptual, so you can understand the concept of how things work. Some of them are specifics about actually what to do. Like dollar cost averaging is this little secret. And I'm going to give you a stat here in a minute about dollar cost averaging that'll blow your mind. But let's go through the importance of a loan. Our first products that we made in cryptocurrencies were actually about mining. We had a background in energy. We started setting up facilities for people to go mine cryptocurrencies. And mining a cryptocurrency just means you're running the network, right? You have a bunch of computers. These computers record transactions on the Bitcoin network, and they get rewarded with Bitcoin. And that's where their cash flow comes from. That's the reward. That's what they're building. And when we started this, Bitcoin was around $1,500 a piece. It was pretty cheap. And it went all the way up to like 20,000 after about a year of us being involved in this. And all the people that we were involved with in building these facilities and helping them locate these facilities around the world started having cash flow problems because Bitcoin went from 20,000 all the way down to like 2,500. And it kind of hovered around $3,000. So all the facilities that we started with these guys and all the projects we started, now they didn't have any money to continue to reinvest in those. So out of this need, again, the question that we had before, how do you start a business or how do you build a product? Out of a need. The need for these guys was to have the ability to tap into the value of their Bitcoin, but not give it up because they knew at some point it'd be worth more than if they had just sold it and then used the dollars to reinvest in more mining. So what we did is we told them, look, you bring us your Bitcoin and we'll hold it for you, but we're going to give you 70 cents on the dollar. In some cases, it's 50 cents, depending on certain things. And I won't bore you with the details, but suffice it to mean they get a certain amount of the value of their Bitcoin out, but not sell it, right? Because the only alternative is to sell your assets. And you still need those assets. They still want to appreciate. So you can see here on the loan, let's say you were doing $1,000, right? You wanted $1,000 from your Bitcoin, and you wanted you could either do ETH or Bitcoin. And you can see over here on the right that it's flashing. What's happening is we're changing the parameters around the need of the person getting the loan. There's all these questions here. Do you want to maximize your cash, minimize collateral? On the right, you're going to see that the parameters are changing, or the price is changing. What the cost is, right, or the length of the term of the loan. So I want to do 70 cents on the dollar. So that's basically a 70% LTV. You can see the interest rate is about 15%. If I did 50% LTV, it's 12% and on. You can see the parameters. You can customize your loan to basically meet your needs of what's most important. I don't want to have a margin call, or I want to maximize my cash, or I want to minimize the interest. All of these things, this calculator basically programs your loan for you. And then you could start and go through this loan, right?
Correct.
And at the end of this process, it takes a few minutes. You would deposit your Bitcoin or your Ethereum, and then you would get basically a dollar amount on your account, and then you could withdraw that to your bank account, and then you could invest in your business. That's about as simple as it is, right? But the critical part of this is what it does in value, right? It unlocks an economy. When you think about every developing economy, what do they always need first? They need credit. They need some way to leverage their value that they already hold, unlock it, and go do something else with it so it can compound their ability to earn more. And that occurs with a bank. Banks, a lot of people don't like banks. There are a lot of things that banks have done that we don't like. In fact, banks and what they did during the credit crisis in 2008 was the whole reason that Bitcoin came about.
Yeah.
Right? We won't have time to go into all those details, but anyways, it allows you to unlock the benefits of your crypto that you hold, so you can actually buy more crypto. So, for example, if you had $1,000 loan against cryptocurrencies, you see, and it tells you how much collateral you need to have right here. I got this much Bitcoin. Well, I could buy a loan or get a loan, get another, let's say, $1,000, and then buy more Bitcoin. So you can kind of compound that. That's a good use of it, right? Or I could invest like a lot of our other people that got loans and businesses, they were investing in mining, which would build more cash flow. This tool unlocks growth, right? And that was the important part about what we learned over the years of doing this, is that we were unlocking growth, not only by allowing people to keep their Bitcoin and then reinvest in more Bitcoin or in more businesses. It started compounding, and we had people. I'm going to show you one guy. His story is pretty fantastic, but it's real. His name is Doug, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But his story is amazing, and it encompasses all of these aspects. He's just an average guy, and I can't tell you how much he's worth, but I can tell you it's a lot. So you're going to show her. Who are you?
I run Dougco, which is started out as a joke name because, as I'm an OG Bitcoiner from 2011.
OG, okay.
The best advice I ever got was, whatever you're going to spend on Bitcoin, just on mining, just buy Bitcoin, which I did, and it was the best decision I made because I suddenly was just acquiring Bitcoin at very low prices. No one knew where it was going to go then, so it was more like just for fun.
Yeah.
Every month I would do $400, to BitInstant or Mt. Gox. Eventually it went to Mt. Gox and whatever the case is. So it's ironic in a way that I'm here at Mining Disrupt, and I've never mined a day in my life.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised it's still so relevant.
Whoa.
Yeah. As the size grows, and you got to have an acre of land now, and you guys help on financing a lot of these large-scale things.
Right.
So.
Okay, so did you hear what he said? Well, with that first part, he said, how much money was he investing every month?
Yeah, he was just doing like $100 to $400. Like it wasn't like he was digging into a big mortgage or a savings account or anything like that. It was just, hey, this is what I have available for investing this month, and this is what I'm going to use. Yeah, and it's compounded over time.
Yeah, he was buying Bitcoin. I think Bitcoin in 2011, was certainly not where it is today, but it was like, if I remember correctly, it was like $50 to $100 per Bitcoin. Wow. That was a decade ago, right? Maybe a little more, about 11 years ago. And he just kept buying $400 every month. This guy, Doug, worked for an audio visual company pulling cable, right? So he was kind of manual labor guy. He was a videographer and did a few other things like that. But when he said the best advice I got was to just basically whatever I was going to spend on mining, just start buying the Bitcoin. It was easier, it was simpler, right? So if you look at this chart, this shows you kind of the same thing. And we're just going to simplify it with a 5-year chart, right? So basically this chart goes into, if I had $100, I think that was the premise of this chart. If I had $100 every month, what would I do with that in terms of participating in cryptocurrencies, right? My journey, I'm trying to buy this stuff, right? And so if you did that and just closed your eyes and did not worry about the price, right, and just bought $100 every month, what would happen, right? That's one question. There's some other strategies that people like to do to say, hey, buy the dip, right? So what that means is when the market goes down, buy as much as you can at the bottom, right? And those are two strategies. The problem with that, in terms of buying the dip, is how do you know when that is? No, but I'm fresh out of crystal balls, man. I have no idea what the price of Bitcoin is going to be. What's the low? So then you see a lot of guys that are trading crypto on technical analysis, right? And they're going to go through and do all these things and look at, roll the chicken bones and figure out all the stuff. And, and yes, that's helpful, but it requires you to do something very specific that a lot of people don't want to do. Essentially become a day trader, right? I don't know about you, but how much time do you spend, do you want to spend day trading?
Yeah, not a lot of time.
Well, and in fact, remember, what did you tell me when we were at Supercross? You said, I just spent the last 6 months. Tell them what you were telling me.
Yeah, I was looking into, option trading, looking into technical analysis, fundamental analysis, and trying to figure out like what's the most successful approach when it comes to day trading. In terms of trading, which companies to trade with, which ones are the most volatile, which ones are like the least risky, and then trying to figure out which game to play, right? Like which company do I choose to try and apply technical analysis to daily and try to constantly, buy the dip and, all of those things, man. I was looking into it pretty in depth.
And it was all straightforward, super easy to understand. And within, a few days, you recognize, I know everything there is to know, that I'm going to put all my money at risk, right?
Of course, man. Of course. It was very simple. It's 6 months.
It's great. After 6 months, you were asking me the same question. Hey, I just want to kind of know what to do.
Yeah.
Right? That was your question. I've looked at all this stuff and I still don't know what to do. And that is one of the biggest reasons why people don't do that, or they get into crypto or don't get into buying equities or all these things, because there are professionals on the other side, right? These are two-way markets, but you've got a buyer and a seller. So if you have an institution, you have hedge funds, you got banks, you got all these guys with, hundreds of millions of dollars of investments into the infrastructure to do high frequency trading, right? To get the edge, the absolute razor's edge on every trade. So they can front run you, basically know what you're going to do before you do it, and then execute the trade before you get to do it.
Yeah.
You're never going to beat these guys. That's what they do 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, right? That's their job, is to go out and take your money.
Exactly.
Right? So the average person sits at their house on their PC and says, well, I'm going to put, my life savings into this thing and become a day trader. And the SEC and the CFTC, there's some studies, you can just Google those studies. They kind of did some research and found out that the average person, when they're trying to do Forex trading, which is trade currencies, right? Like the dollar, the Japanese yen, all of these different things, where they're trying to learn to day trade that, and other day traders, within 12 months, I believe it was 90% of everybody that starts day trading loses all their money.
Man.
Because they can't compete with investment funds, banks, all of these guys. That is their job, to take your money, right? I remember one of our former head of our trade desk, that's kind of how he used to introduce himself, as he said, when he was working for hedge funds, he says, yeah, I trade options. My job is to steal money from banks. And he had, he had a whole team of programmers. He had all these guys, all this stuff, figuring out all the different ways to have edge in a trade. So the idea, what I'm trying to do is make sure that everybody dispenses with the idea that they're somehow going to beat these guys in predicting the market.
Yeah.
Right. It's not going to happen. As somebody who has not grown up and been, spent their professional life in these fields, it's not going to happen. right?
Yeah.
So not to discourage everybody, now what, right? And that's kind of the question I think a lot of these guys have is, well, now what do I do? And there are lots of YouTube channels and things where you can go watch all the technical stuff and blah, 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 and all these different things. But what we learned in our experience in crypto, and we had a lot of experience in the commodities side of the business with energy and all of these other things that we did, for years before we got into crypto, is that it's simpler to have a product that's like a banking product where you put something in, right? And then you expect to have a buyback kind of guarantee, right? A floor, right?
Yeah.
So that if you ever need your money back, ever want it back, those kind of things, then you had some place to go to. And that was our objective, first objective. And we saw how to structure that in our lending product. So like when you have a bank, you go to a bank and you put in your money, you expect to be able to go back and get your money at the bank, but they take it and they make a loan, right? And the idea is that there's more safety in assets that you can lend against instead of having a zero-sum prospect of trading against somebody where they're always trying to beat you and you're always trying to beat them at buying it at a different price or different range, and you have to take money from somebody. But in this product, in lending, you have people who are willing to give up money all the time because they're taking it and creating more. It's not a zero-sum game. It produces growth. And that has stability. And it takes time to grow that, right? In trading, you can go from whatever your balance is to zero in a trade because nobody has an incentive to show up the next day, and like, let's say if they borrowed money for a tow truck to start a business, those guys still get up every morning, go to work, even though the markets may have crashed and cratered. In fact, the last, few months, the markets have come off really hard, but people are still making their mortgages. People are still, going to their job so they can pay for their car, and all these other things, right? And so it's less likely to run way up and then have a massive crash, right? Unless systemically people are doing things that are bad, like in the 2008 credit crisis, right? That all started from over leveraging the value in people's homes, right? So, but those happen far less. The crashes in the markets and all these other things happen rapidly, and all value can be gone really quick. So anyways, the long story short of that is use what you have to your advantage. For a lot of people, it's time. And now let's do it safely, right? And then average into the market. Don't try to compete with day traders and fight with them and trade every day. All you're going to do is churn your dollars and lose your money, right? And basically that's that process. So let's go back to the dollar cost averaging slide. I want to show you what happens when you dollar cost average, and then we'll talk about that for just a minute. And we also want to get to some other topics that we have, a few other questions, and we want to talk a little bit about crypto for good. I know Joseph's got a release coming up. Maybe you can talk about crypto for good really quick, about what's going to hit tomorrow, and then we'll go to the dollar cost average slide.
Yeah, tomorrow we have the conclusion of the Stolen Dirt Bike trilogy coming out. The team is working hard to make sure that it exceeds expectations. It was a crazy journey. Came on a whole lot of twists, and a lot of those twists will be revealed in tomorrow's episode. But yeah, we're always trying to find ways to take the position that we're in and find ways to help others unconditionally. And that's sometimes that's a challenge, but that's what we're called to do, man. So that's what we're trying to do in every aspect, and that'll be shown tomorrow.
Yeah, and I love that when you found out that you found where your bike was, you called me.
Yeah.
You're like, what do I do?
Yeah, I was like, how should I tackle this, man? And we had multiple options. We thought of multiple options as to how to execute, the proper warfare to get the bike back. But after giving it some time, we really gave it some thought. The light always prevails, man, and we found a way to turn a sour situation into a sweet one, man. And
yeah, and I think that again, that principle in life, maybe when that earlier question, now that I'm 50, what would I do different than when I was 25 or whatever? I
yeah,
would rely on that principle a lot more. That there is always a way to either have patience, persevere, or gain understanding about what you need to do different. You're not always things aren't gonna always work out the way you want them to, but they will work out.
yeah,
And sometimes the worst things that happen in your life turn out to be the best things in hindsight. I think that's what the difference in 25 years has shown.
yeah,
There are lots of times where in starting a business and doing all these things, we struggled, right? I struggled. I lost my election after a couple of times in office, but it turned out to be the best thing for me because I wouldn't have been able to focus on this business if I was still in office,
yeah.
right? So sometimes when you win, you really lose. And sometimes when you lose, you really win, right?
Well,
That's
speaking
jump, right?
exactly. Speaking of winning and losing, we have some new people here who may not know too much about like cryptocurrency and investing, but they want to build a relationship, like you said, with a guy who usually people don't have as much access to. So here we have a collegiate basketball player. His username is LoneBucks15, and he says, "What's the biggest misconception for a man in his 50s and a young man in his 20s?" And this is an athlete who wants to, one day hopefully make it to the NBA. Yeah, it's a broad question, the biggest misconception for a man in his 50s, but how would you answer that for someone who, outside of investing in cryptocurrency, is just looking for inspiration from someone who's achieved a certain level of success?
I think it's that same concept that you take the resources that you have. In this case, people who are younger, they got lots of time.
Yeah.
Be very careful with your time, right? It's the most valuable resource that you have. And the perception that's different is that sometimes when you think you're winning, you're really losing.
Whoa.
Right? And sometimes when you think you're winning or when you're losing, you're really winning.
Can you give an example?
Yeah. I just did with my election, right? I got voted out of office by 2 votes, right?
Okay.
And that was primarily due to a position that I took that I believed in the freedom of parents being able to take their kids to whatever school they wanted to, right? Yeah. And that the money should follow. So I voted for this thing. And the largest employer in my area was the Nebo School District. So all these teachers and all these people who felt like it was an affront to their interests for me to allow parents to take their kids wherever they want, which means the dollars went with them. So it might mean that their school district didn't get as much money if they didn't have that child there, which is the way it should be. They could go to a private school, a charter school, or whatever it was, right? Yeah. And they could take that, the parents could take that money with them to fund that education. So I did what I thought was right. And I got voted out of office because of the influence that was here. And it turned out to be the best for me for standing up for what I thought was right. Right? So sometimes when you lose, you really win. Right?
Hey.
So that concept for people that, for when you're younger, don't take things as zero sum. Exactly the approach to investing in cryptocurrencies, right? If you think you got to go out and take something from somebody, or be better than them at trading and all these other things, it usually doesn't work out well. You usually end up losing all your money, right? Yeah. If you try to become a day trader, because you don't have the skill set, the tools, all of that stuff, and the years that people invest to do that. Let them play that game. Let them do that game. You take the assets that you have, which is time, patience, and consistency, and make that work for you, right? So that's the perception I would give. And that approach works for cryptocurrencies for sure, right? Just do what's disciplined, and any investing really, right? Do what's disciplined. So I know we're going to be short on time here in just a few minutes. But that concept is what we're going to deploy. So bring back up the DCA chart. I know I got off track, and we got ADAD going here. We're going to ask all kinds of questions, go off track. But Paul, and thanks to Paul. Paul's our guy behind the scenes, our producer, making all this stuff happen. Okay, so let's blow up that chart. This is that concept in action, right? Dollar cost averaging. It's the story of Doug, an average guy, pulling cable, doing audiovisual work, 11 years ago. Heard of this thing called Bitcoin. Thought, okay, I'm going to take some capital, and $400. He could probably afford to lose every single dollar that he put in there, which is the right approach. Don't mortgage your house. Don't do all these things that could put your lifestyle at risk and take more risk than what you should, right? Because it's going to go up and it's going to go down. So you need to put yourself in a better position that says, hey, if I can afford to lose $100 a month or $500 a month or whatever, Doug could afford to lose 400. That's what you put at risk. And then you take a single point in time that is consistently averaged. In this case, this math that we did here was once a month. And so you can see once a month, you put $100 in over 5 years. And regardless of what the price is, because nobody knows what the price is going to be, just keep buying, right? Just keep doing what you're going to do. Start putting it away, buy it. And the average, here's what the result was. For dollar cost averaging, you would have today, you would have $18,319 worth of Bitcoin. But if you had tried to buy the dip, right, and just buy that point, you would have $7,476. Massive difference, right? Over 100% difference.
Yeah.
And what it does is it utilizes the law of averages, consistency, and low risk proposition that you can afford to lose $100 a month. Then you can do this strategy. So if you had started investing when we got involved in Bitcoin was in 2017, and you put $100 in a month, I think virtually every person in a developed country could do this strategy, right? They would have 18,000. And think about how much they would have at these peaks. You can see where the prices peaked. You would have 3 times that much. You might have $40,000, $50,000 at that point. Then you can start to sell out. You can start to do that, right? So those are the lessons that you should learn, the little strategies, the little secrets around this, right? Using what you have to your advantage. That's the thing that I think is most important. Okay. Looks like we got one more question here. This is JSpook16 from Discord. It says, any further details on the SmartFi app and the bank that will be using it? He's disclosing some top secret stuff here because he follows us on Discord and he kind of knows what's going on. Yes, you're going to see some announcements made here in a little bit. We've partnered with a bank. They have realized the value of cryptocurrencies and want to do some things. And this actually happened from our sponsorship of Supercross. Oddly enough, CFO of the bank saw our sponsorship. He liked Supercross. He was watching all the stuff that we were doing when you and I were on Supercross doing interviews. And he called me and we started working with them to develop a specific product. It was like basically an app, like Venmo. And we're going to talk about that soon. We can't talk much more about that.
Yeah.
But that's going to allow just about anybody anywhere at any time to basically use their phone to do some of these strategies, right? So that's all I can say about that right now. It's going to be interesting to see how that works out. But again, the real goal here is join the community, help fund small business loans like Joseph just did. Maybe, Joseph, you could talk about your experience of between Probit, where you can buy the SMTF token, the SmartFi token, and SmartFi, the platform. And what was your experience there like? And maybe any questions you might answer, because we've talked briefly about it, but I didn't hear at the time when we were talking about it, either difficulties, the good things, the bad things, whatever. Maybe you could just talk about that for a minute.
Well, I like how Tether, right? I learned that Tether is a type of currency that I can transfer between platforms. So in terms of... It's
a stable coin, and it is...
Right.
Typically almost always equal to $1. It's designed not to have fluctuating value, but go ahead.
Right. Yeah. So being able to purchase, X amount of dollars of Tether makes it to where on any platform, if I move that tether to that platform, like I've technically moved my dollars from one platform to the other. So that was cool for me to learn that.
And there's a very important point to that I'll get to in just a second that will illustrate to people. There's a reason for that, because the price of the SmartFi token can be different at different exchanges because you're tapping into different markets.
And that's something I noticed.
Yeah, Probit is one of our partner exchanges. They're in Korea, right? And so SmartFi token is traded on a Korean exchange, and they have a different value. You know, there's just different people trading it versus the people that are on SmartFi platform. And we're going to be doing some other decentralized platforms where you can buy that in the future. I don't want to give away too much of that, but in probably the next 30 days, you'll be able to use a MetaMask wallet. And this is probably more for the crypto nerds on here that already know a lot of this stuff. But MetaMask wallet, so you can go in and buy on a decentralized pool, liquidity pool, buy the SMTF token. We're doing some things to make sure that it's totally safe. That is not for the beginner. Nobody on here that is a beginner. Like Joseph, do not go do that, right? Yeah. This is a little more advanced product. Stick with a centralized exchange. That's one of the easiest ways to do it. But anyways, go ahead. More questions about, you know, your experience buying on a Korean exchange, your first purchase.
Yeah, no, the experience was cool. It was new for me. So being able to purchase the SMTF, I thought that was pretty simple, especially on the SmartFi platform. And that was the new part for me, was learning there's ways to be able to quote unquote communicate your cash on multiple different platforms, but just understanding that stable coin and going, okay, by purchasing this stable coin, you've now opened up the door to multiple platforms of being able to, you know, move around your funds. So yeah, that was all pretty new for me.
Yeah. And so I'm going to share my screen again one time here. Let's see. I'm going to pull up our exchange and show the price of SMTF here. Let me share my screen. There we go, right here. Okay, so you can see here's the SMTF chart on our exchange. And right now it's bouncing up a little bit, probably a little bit due to the conversations we're having and things that are going on. It's at $1.49. So it was up, you know, up around $2. The highest it's gone was about $4 earlier in the year. And like everything else, all the markets are going to go up, they're going to go down. But you can see the price here of $1.49. But that's probably, yeah. So now can you? Hopefully you guys can see the Probit exchange now. Can you see that, Joseph? I don't know if you can see that one. So now you can see that on Probit. Yeah, you can see it's bouncing up because people are hearing about the token and stuff and trading it on Probit. But it's at $1.36. So there's 10 cents. Let's see, more than that. Oh, now it's at 155. So you can see the difference, right? So when Joseph went and bought it on the Probit exchange, it was cheaper over there than buying it on SmartFi. And we'll readily tell people that, right? That there are times when our platform is not going to be the cheapest. You want to go over there. So having two alternatives in different places to buy it is where you want to go buy it. Then you also purchase some on something that's called Smart Cycle. And I'm going to save that for later for another discussion. The Smart Cycle is what gives this product the value that it has in the networking effect. Remember, we talked about the placid gorilla, right? And Smart Cycle is a process that basically matches our loan funding with the token, and it has a predetermined price. So it sits and goes in a circle. It's an upward kind of a deflationary aspect to it. And I won't bore you with all the details. And we're going to go into a deep dive on that in another AMA, another podcast, another time. But it allows the token to give a buyback guarantee no matter what price you buy it at on our platform. So let's say you bought it something more expensive on the SmartFi platform, you automatically get a buyback guarantee on the Smart Cycle. I want to make sure that people understand this. It's not on on the exchange, because on the exchange, this is just this bilateral zero-sum trade that you're doing with somebody else. You're buying it from somebody else. But when you buy it from us or a partner exchange like Probit, you can go register your Probit tokens, and we'll do that later with you, Joseph, to show you how you can register those tokens for the buyback guarantee. So if you buy it on Probit, you get a guarantee. If you buy it on our Smart Cycle, you get a buyback guarantee, right? That whatever price you bought it at, we'll give it back to you within a year if you don't like the price of the token for whatever reason, because it's more like a bank process, right? We're using the proceeds of that transaction to fund loans, not go buy, Lamborghinis or Ferraris or anything like that, or build software. All of our software and stuff is built, and the funding for the continued maintenance of the project and the expansion that we do and all these things comes from the interest that is earned on the loans, right? Just so people understand, when you buy our token, you're not going to get an interest payment. You're not going to get any of those things. Your ability to profit from that comes from your ability to buy or trade or sell on these other exchanges, right? There's a whole legal reason for that, which is if we were just to pay people interest, that would be a security, right? We don't do that. So the expectation of our profit comes from your ability to hold, to be patient, to go through this process like Doug did with his Bitcoin, right? He used his own experience to basically buy a crypto at a lower price. And over time, over the process, it increased in value, and that's where he gained his profits. So that is the basics of the interaction between the loans that we make and the token and the platform and the growth. So as we start building the community of people that are holding SMTF, when they have a buyback guarantee, if they buy it the right way and do the right things with it and they're patient, right? And then second, as the price goes up, let's say what you bought yours at, what, $1.20 something, if I remember correctly. I don't remember the details.
I believe somewhere around there.
Yeah, so it's at $1.25 today, or I'm sorry, $1.55, and then on Probit it's $1.49. So you could go sell it and roughly make a 15% profit or something on that basis. But obviously, the value of dollar cost averaging.
Exactly.
So you don't need to sit and be a day trader. Don't sit and try to chase these returns. Set a goal that says, hey, when my token is worth $10 or $5 or whatever you think is your price, as more people buy it and more loans are made, it's this kind of upward self-reinforcing cycle. And we're not going to guarantee that you can make money. That's not what we do here. Is we're not guaranteeing all this stuff, right? We don't want to give anybody the perception. Prices go up and they go down. The token was at $4 before, could go there again. We think that process, as long as we keep making loans and doing all these things and the market keeps moving, eventually it's going to do that. It's going to go up, it's going to go down. But you have to decide when to sell that, right? And let's see, we've got 4 minutes left. I want to make sure that we get to the crypto for good, but maybe any other questions that people have. And I hope those little secrets are helpful, right? And if there's another secret, that we're going to reveal some more in upcoming podcasts, and the ways to use this, the arbitrage, which is what that's called. And it's just a fancy French word that says it's a different price on one exchange to another exchange, so you can learn to buy where it's cheaper and sell where it's higher. That's all. That's all that means. That's the secret, right? That's one of the things. But let's talk about crypto for good. This is one of the things I love. We can make all this money, but it doesn't mean anything unless we can go help people. So let's
All right,
watch
so
this.
we just found the dirt bike.
For me to know that it's my bike, Yamaha have an app that connects to your bike, and I changed the engine's mapping to a hard-hitting power delivery, and I hear bam, bam. And I realized that I had the phone number to the person who had my dirt bike, and I decided I was gonna give him a call. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, what do I do? And then he picks up. Hello? Hey, what's going on, man? He says, who is this? I don't tell him who I am. Instead, I say, if you had the opportunity to help anybody you know, anyone in your community, with a couple $1,000s, would you do it? There's a little silence on the phone. He says, yeah, man, I'm all about helping people, man. I make music. So you're down? He says, yeah, who is this? I say, okay, well, the next question I ask you is gonna be the toughest one for you to answer. He says, what is it, man? I said, hey, would you still be down if I told you that my name is Joseph and I'm the owner of the bike you have? There's an awkward silence. I don't know if he's about to hang up, and that's when he says, you know what, man? I'm down. And I said, when can we meet? Now I'm nervous. I don't know if I'm setting myself up to get beat up, but now I have to trust that everything's gonna go to plan and that I can get my dirt bike back. He calls me back and he's like, hey, I don't wanna take a loss on the bike. What? I got a little confused. I'm like, what does he mean he doesn't want to take a loss on the bike? It's my bike. So he's saying, I don't mind giving you the bike back, but I need something in return. It's like, I do music. And he's like, look, this Toledo lifestyle where I'm living at, I want something different for myself. I want to make a name for myself. I want to be able to make a specific type of life for myself. What can I do for you, bro? He says, can you help me with marketing? I'm like, yeah, I could do that. People gonna know who you are. If you can show that you're different, change the narrative, show that you're not who we're thinking you are, that'll do all the marketing it has to do. You just gotta be willing. Written up a little contract, both signed it, I'll help him with marketing. In exchange, he's supposed to give me the bike back.
I'm gonna head to the Franklin Mall. I'm gonna be walking around there, kind of just killing some time. I don't know if you sleep or anything, but hit me up. Hit me up.
I get out to his place, and this is when he says, let me bring out your bike.
All right, so we just found the dirt bike. The person who has it, he needs to go meet someone on it, so he's gonna ride it, and I'm gonna watch him ride off with my dirt bike.
For me to know that it's my bike, Yamahas have an app that connects to your bike every time the bike turns on. So he walks to his garage at his mom's place, and I hear, bam, bam, bam.
Yeah, he has definitely fried my clutch. Bro, that tire is smoked.
I told you this is my first bike, bro. I never rode a dirt bike before this.
When I check the app, I notice that the app is lighting up and it's showing me that it's connected to the bike. I happen to click a button and I changed the engine's mapping from casual power to a hard-hitting power delivery, meaning that when you twist the throttle, the bike is gonna go a lot faster and hit a lot stronger than what you're used to. So then I press record. Let me show you what I saw.
Oh!
And at the moment when he hit the ground, did I just witness my man completely destroy himself? Is he knocked out? What do I do? Like if he's on the ground, not moving, do I help him? Do I grab the bike? What's the smartest thing for me to do in this moment? But then he gets up.
Bro, are you okay?
Insane.
That's such a crazy thing. Yeah. And so tomorrow, tell them what's going to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, so tomorrow is when everybody finds out the conclusion. They find out exactly what happens as to the crypto for good, the conclusion of how I was able to actually secure the dirt bike, the types of choices that DeMario had to make in order to come at peace with all of the decisions made. It's a full conclusion. There's new characters introduced. It's hopefully it lives up to the expectation that everybody has for a conclusion on this series.
Yeah, it's crazy, man, and it involves a guy that was shot 5 times.
Yes.
Yeah, but more than that, and it's been on these a couple of these things that we've done that you've done mainly, where SmartFi sends you some money and we say, hey, go do good.
Exactly.
Go find somebody that needs help, right?
Exactly.
And in this case, even though he, somehow, I don't know the whole process, but he has your bike, it was stolen. You used patience. And I think this thing, again, sometimes when you win, you really lose. Sometimes when you lose, you really win.
Yeah.
Right? Your bike got stolen. But we use this process, one, to benefit some other people and show them this. And then also we can show people, illustrate with the content what we're doing at SmartFi, right? And I think that's the concept. And if more people in their life can take that view that no matter what happens to you, and this is another crypto for good, where you were in Panama and helped this lady with her small business, right? And
exactly.
Some cases we give people a handout, some cases we give them a hand up, right? The loans are a hand up, In some cases where we just give away money, that's a handout, right? But in any case, as a person and as a company, and I think I speak for everybody that works for us and everybody that's involved in what we're doing, is that we have to, when we benefit, we have to share that, right? And it doesn't matter how much money we make or all of these things we're going to do, and all, everybody's going to do well and all this other stuff's going to happen. If we don't bring other people along and help people out in this life, what's the point of having money?
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I loved about the Crypto for Good, and that's kind of a special thing for me to watch unfold. That was something we've always wanted to do, and that's happening. And thank you for making that happen. You're the guy kind of making that, carrying that out. Where I'm running the company, I can't do a lot of that stuff, but you're doing it. So I appreciate that.
I'm honored, man. I'm honored.
Really quick, we're 3 minutes over time. There's one or two questions here I just want to get to really quickly. There's a guy, Kakas, I think I'm spelling it, K-A-K-S, says, is there any possible way to trade SMTF without KYC? Yes, you can go to Probit. Probit's a Korean exchange, and they have different rules than we do here in the United States. So that's one way to do that. That's why Joseph went there. But I think we're out of time. I know there's more questions. We didn't even get to, we just barely scratched the surface on the questions, but we're just out of time. So join us again next week. Next week we have Senator Kurt Cullimore on, and Senator Cullimore is sponsoring legislation in Utah to work through some technical things that we want to build with our decentralized platform. Those are some of the things that we're going to be doing. And all of that, there he is right there. And super talented guy. He's an attorney by trade, his family owns a real estate company where they help do a bunch of things in real estate, but he's also a state senator and helping us with crypto. He sees the future in crypto, and Utah as a whole from this task force is trying to make Utah a center for cryptocurrencies. And I was actually in the state legislature here, so I know these guys, I believe in them, and we're going to do some good things to move forward the cause of cryptocurrency, for the average person. So stay tuned, subscribe, like all of our socials. Joseph, maybe you can take us out from here.
Yeah, to everyone who joined, thank you. Like I said at the beginning, this is something that we've been tackling for the last couple of weeks. And it's been a lot of fun kind of just seeing how it's organically starting to mold itself into something that we can continuously keep adding value for you guys. So to everyone who showed up, thank you guys. For everyone who asked questions and got engaged, thank you guys. Aaron, thank you for taking the time to actually answer people's questions, try and make things a little bit more clear. And thank you for allowing me to be a part of this journey with you, man. Having a lot of fun, and see you guys on the next one.
Yep, loved it.